The tale I tell begins where most stories end, at the moment a proud son falls from grace, beneath stone heavier than shame. They called him Durgan's Stonefall. Once his name rumbled through the dwarven halls like a hammer strike, full of hope and promise. But hope is fragile, and so too is a name. When the time came for the trial of stone, Durgan stepped into the mountain's ancient maw bearing his father's greataxe, heart blazing with conviction. He was meant to emerge crowned in glory. Yet when the torchlight returned to him, it found Durgan bloodied, empty-handed, and alone. No hero's welcome awaited. His clan greeted him with stony silence, their faces closed as barred gates. The granite walls where his ancestors' feet were carved had no space for failure. By the stones, you are no Stonefall, his uncle spat, the words cold as the mountain's roots. Cast out, his name chiseled from memory, Durgan left the halls behind, exiled to wander the wilds with nothing but the battered axe and his shame. He journeyed through ashen passes, where snow curled around blackened boulders and the sky hung like old slate. The wind spoke in bitter whispers. Days bled into each other, punctuated only by the ache in his chest, deeper than hunger. To travelers huddled by their fires, he was a ghost, a thick-set dwarf with a haunted gaze, beard ragged from wind and worry, armor scuffed and patched. Legacy is forged in fire, he recalled his grandfather saying, but ashes remember too. Sometimes Durgan thought he heard the mountain call his name, not as kin, but as a debt unpaid. He steeled himself against the pull, determined to walk until the weight let him go or broke him utterly. Yet fate, sly as it is, had other plans. One twilight, with the world painted in bruised hues, the ground shuddered. Stones tumbled from the high cliffs, and an ancient rumble shook the valley. Durgan pressed a calloused hand to the quaking dirt. "No storm stirs like this," he muttered. Fear and curiosity danced in his chest, emotions he thought the mountain had buried. From the deep, an old evil rose, creatures of stone and shadow torn from underworld legends, crawling free from split earth. Villagers on the pass fled, shrieking of living statues, of things that should never see sky. Durgan was one of the first to see them, stone beasts with blazing red eyes, their bodies crawling with runes older than speech. He could have turned and run. The shame of his failure told him he should. Let them find a worthier champion, he thought, and yet, seeing their terror, Durgan hefted his greataxe and strode forward. No clan banner, no name, just a burden and a blade. Despite his solitude, Durgan was not alone for long. Fate wove him together with other outcasts on the run. Calith, the wood elf ranger, scarred by exile and vengeance, whose silver bow sang like grief in the night. Mira, a halfling cleric whose prayers flickered with doubt, but whose courage refused to quit. Brusque, a Goliath bard draped in wild tattoos, who masked sorrow with thunderous song and laughter. Together, they were a mismatched, half-broken party clinging to hope at the world's edge. Trust came slow, as wary as foxes near a snare. Durgan kept to himself, his voice gravelly, eyes always toward the mountain. Yet, at night, the others would sometimes catch him turning the greataxe over in his hands, tracing the runes as if seeking guidance from ghosts. A hero fights with their heart, not their memory, Mira would say quietly, her hands mending wounds, and wounds unseen. He wished he could believe her. In battle, Durgan swung with a fury that surprised even him. Each strike echoed with old hunger, the wish to be seen, to matter. Sweat stained his armor, and stone beasts fell, but victory never tasted sweet enough to wash away old bitterness. One night, as embers glowed low, Calith whispered a tale of her own lost kin. Durgan listened, and in the stillness, suspicion softened to understanding. Bonds, fragile as crystal, began to temper into something stronger. Brusque's laughter grew louder, Mira's prayers steadier, and Durgan, for the first time since his exile, started to believe he might still have a place beyond the memory of what he used to be. Their journey took them deep into the old stones, the heart of the mountains where the tremors were born. There, in caverns veined with forgotten magic, the truth of the trial came exhumed. They found carvings, half buried, depicting the stone beasts as guardians, not monsters. The trial, it seemed, was never about conquest. It was meant to test a leader's judgment, compassion, and restraint. The courage not just to fight, but to see the world anew. Realization struck Durgan cold. Was there ever glory in violence, or just the hollow ring of steel on stone? He wondered, shame warring with relief. As the party pieced together lost wisdom, the true threat emerged. A corrupt spirit, once the soul of the mountain, had twisted the guardians to rage. Now it sought to break free, its anger threatening to reduce the clan's homes to dust and memory. Durgan stood before the mountain's old heart, the others battered at his side. He raised his axe, the weight now more memory than weapon. I was not worthy then, but today I choose to try. He faced the corrupted spirit, voice steady. Stone remembers pain, but it also endures. The confrontation was fierce, not just of muscle but of will. Each party member gave their all. Calith's arrows struck true, Mira's faith kindled hope, and Brusque's singing kept despair at bay. Durgan met the spirit not with hate, but with empathy, a willingness to listen, to understand the wound beneath the wrath. In that moment, the mountain trembled, not in anger, but in acceptance. The corruption broke, spilling away like dust in wind. Durgan fell to his knees, overcome, not victorious, but transformed. The guardians faded back into statues, their rage quieted. Above ground, the tremors eased. The sky cleared to sharp blue. The party, bruised and changed, understood themselves in new light. Perhaps legacy isn't what we leave behind, Mira murmured, but who we choose to be, again and again. Durgan stood at the pass, looking back at the peaks. He was still exiled, still unnamed, but no longer empty. His story was not carved into the stone halls. Yet as he walked away from the mountain, not as Stonefall, but as Durgan, he understood one thing. Redemption is not a gift given. It is a fire you carry, burning even in the ashes. And so his legend began, not with his clan, but with the choice to rise, alone, again. If you enjoyed Durgan's story, leave a comment below. What tale should we tell next? Suggest a hero, a villain, or a wild twist you want to see in our next story, and maybe yours will be the next we share by the firelight.